Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to The Discriminating Gamer, the board game review show that reminds you that you should never, ever brush your teeth with your left hand. A toothbrush works much better. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at Fortress America from Fantasy Flight Games. In Fortress America from Fantasy Flight Games, 2 to 4 players take on the roles of either the United States or one of 3 various invading powers. You have powers coming from Europe, you have powers coming from Asia, and you have powers coming from Central and South America, all determined to crush the United States of America. The game board is a map of the United States with 3 different invasion routes from those invaders, each with 6 invasion zones. The United States is separated into various regions, and there are a number of cities on the board. These cities have various little city icons, little city minis rather, that rest on icons on the board. You also have mountainous regions and kind of more non-mountainous regions. At the top of the game board, you have 2 tracks. You have a track that tracks the game turn. You also have a track that will keep track of the various cities that have been conquered by the invaders. There's also a number of resources, different kinds of resources that are allocated on different spots throughout the board, which may come into play. And each player is going to receive a mountain of plastic pieces, army pieces. The American player will also get kind of these laser defense units and partisan units that are gray, like the cities, as well as about 60 green army guys. The various invader forces, blue, red, and yellow, will each also get a number of playing pieces for their armies as well. The basic units here are infantry, mobile units, hover tanks, helicopters, and bombers. And of course, you've got kind of infantry, you've got mechanized, and you've got air units. Now, at the beginning of the game, each of the invaders is going to put out a number of their units in the invasion zones. And they can kind of spread them out, but you can never have more than 5 units in any one space on any space on the board. Now, before the invaders put out their units, the American player will actually put out 2 of his units on each American city. So each of his American city will have 2 units there that will, of course, be there to defend it. The invaders then, they can put out their guys, and then on the first invader's turn, and then each subsequent invader, they're going to put out a number of invasion combat tokens, saying exactly where they're going to fight. The player then can, on subsequent rounds, they can actually move units into position to fight there. There's various movements. Infantry can't move in this stage unless it's accompanied by a mechanized unit, a mobile unit which can move it. But generally, you can move units to get into position to attack for this stage. When players attack, you're going to roll different kinds of die. Players are going to roll red die for the infantry, which is the weakest. You're going to roll, that's a 6-sided die. You're going to roll 8-sided white die for the tanks and the helicopters, and then the bombers are going to actually roll the blue 10-sided die. Defenders are actually going to roll first, and then the attackers. Whatever survives from the attackers then gets a chance to roll. Now, typically, you are trying to roll the attack symbol, which is a burst in a circle. If you roll just the burst, if you're on regular ground and not in a city, then it's a regular hit. But if you roll that in the mountains, you have to have combined arms, meaning you have to have both infantry, mechanized, and air units in order for that to count as a hit. That's in either mountains or city regions. You can also roll a retreat, which if you roll that on the attack, you force the defender to retreat 1 space, 1 of his units. And if you're a defender and you roll that, then 1 of the attacker's units is just withdrawn from that combat. After a player does combat, they're going to go ahead and have a second move phase where they can actually move their units into those locations they just took over and conduct some other non-combat movements. At that point, you can flip the marker from its battle side to its conquered side, and it shows that that specific region is now controlled by that faction. If there are any cities in that region, the city mini is taken from that region and placed on the city track, indicating that one of America's cities has fallen. Now you start with the Western invader, then the Southern invader, and then the Eastern invader. Once they've all gone and advanced, you proceed to the American's turn. Now, every turn the American can put out one laser installation next to one of his cities. Usually you start with like Detroit because it's the safest at the beginning of the game. You can then place a token next to it, a targeting token next to it. But then the American player will draw two of his reinforcement cards. Now these reinforcement cards will either allow him to put more of the green units on the board, or they will allow him to place partisan units on the board. These are the gray infantry, and they represent, of course, people just taking up arms against the invaders. And they're going to be placed in different cities or in different resource locations, and it's going to give maybe some other advantages to the American player as well. Now the American player, he can make his initial movements. He can actually declare combat by flipping over one of the invaders' control tokens to its combat side, and he can move units into position. And then before combat starts, he can actually take his laser and he can target a unit. Now again, as the game goes on, he's going to have more and more of these lasers, so he can target multiple units. You place that targeting token inside that location, and then what you do is you roll a 10-sided die. On a roll of 5 or higher, you succeed in destroying any unit of your choice in that location, and then that targeting token is removed. After all the laser firing is done, the American player can go ahead and try to retake locations and cities. If he's successful in retaking a city, that city comes off the board and goes back onto the main board, and critically, the player gets to draw another reinforcement card. He can't look at it yet, it just kind of goes into a deck in front of him, and then during his next phase, when he draws his 2, he can also select that card for any of the cities that he has retaken. Now, during subsequent phases, when the attacking player is, when the invading player is reinforcing, typically you can just grab 8 units. They can distribute it in the invasion zones and then move in. But there's also a variant that I recommend playing with where players can only, they have the choice to do the 8 units, or they can only do 5 units and draw a card from their deck, and their card was going to give them some special advantages, including creating one city on the board, Atlanta, San Antonio, or Seattle, a new invasion zone, so they can actually build units right there on the continent of North America. Players are going around and around. They are battling to move forward. The invaders are moving further and further into the United States. They are trying to take out the cities. They're trying to destroy America's ability to defend itself. And critically, they are trying to gain some of those resource points. They're trying to take out lasers, and they're trying to take out cities. As soon as the United States has 18 cities taken over, then the invaders win the game. However, if the United States can succeed in holding out for 10 game turns, or if he can destroy all the invaders' units, then the American player wins Fortress America. All right, so stop. I know what you're thinking. No, this is not a reprint. This is not back in play. This is a game I've had in my collection for years. I had the original Hasbro version. I think it was Hasbro. Yeah, that did the, or it was Milton Bradley. Yeah, it was Milton Bradley. They did the Game Master series with Axis and Allies and this, and a friend of mine gave me a copy of this, and I played it several times when I was a kid. I never liked this game as much as Axis and Allies. I loved the theme of it, but I never liked it as much as Axis and Allies, but I still enjoyed it. And then I was really excited. I'd gotten rid of it. It was kind of a beat-up copy. I got rid of it. And then in 2012, Fantasy Flight Games reprinted Fortress America. And I was super excited. And I remember there was some controversy when it came out because it was sounding like they were going to make the Americans the bad guys. And ultimately, they kind of mitigated that. It's kind of ambiguous. In the original game, it's America. It was Red Dawn, right? And that was the 80s. And now with this version, it's a little more ambiguous about who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. I still say America, but you know, to each their own. This game is, you know, the epitome of the dudes on the map war game, like Axis and Allies, right? It's a light war game, but it's still got some meat in here, and it takes some time to play. It's a good 3 to 4 hour game. You know, we're playing this game the other night, and I should point out, you know, I played this game I think once or twice when the reprint came out, and then I haven't played it since until the other night when we were playing it. And there's we're playing the game, and it was going on and on, but I was able to retake some cities, and we thought I was America, and we thought I was nearly dead, but I was able to retake some cities and hold on for another turn or two. So it was getting later and later, but ultimately it didn't work out for the United States. The cities fell. And then, of course, you do have an option where after America dies, the other players can fight amongst themselves to get kind of see who gets the victory, right? And you add up who's got the most cities, who took out the most lasers, who got the most resource points, and you add those scores together, and that tells you who wins. The game is, I mean, this is a game you play and you feel like you're a kid again in the 80s, you know, when you war gamed like this. It's just fun. It's goofy fun. It does have that Red Dawn feel to it. You know, I think every child of the 80s kind of had that idea in their head that if the Russians come, we'd take to the hills and we'd fight back. And I mean, it's kind of a, you know, you look back and you realize just kind of how foolish that was considering, you know, Soviet power at the time. But still, that was a real fear that Cold War kids grew up with, and even there toward the end of the Cold War. I'm not going to wax philosophic there or anything about that, but I'm just saying that's my mindset. That's where I was coming from. But I'm playing this game and that kind of takes me back to that. And it's just, like I say, it's goofy fun. The game itself shows its age a little bit. It's got some clunky mechanics that you feel like could be streamlined. Like I'm playing it and I feel like, you know, if somebody made a few little adjustments here, this game could be just amazing. Instead of just a fun, good game, it could have been a truly great game. And they kind of didn't do that. They kind of more or less, with a few little changes, just took the old game and repackaged it here. The map's a little bit better. It's got some tracks on it. You know, there's a few other little things here and there that they changed, but it could have been better. A better re-implementation, better, you know, bringing it back. But man, I have fun with this game. And I'm wondering, is it just nostalgia or is it legitimately a good game? And I think it's legitimately a good game. I think there's some good strategic choices here. It's tough. I got to be honest. I don't know that I've ever seen America win. I might have, but it's a tough. You know, I know some other people out there will say, "Oh, it's totally balanced in favor of America." But for me, I don't know that I played a game where America has won. But it's still fun. It's a great adventure game. It's a great game of choices and resource allocation and how do I make this work, and you're kind of sweating it, and everybody's sweating it, particularly the Americans versus the Euro Socialist Pack, which is the Red Invaders on the East Coast. That's always a fun contest there. I do like the cards that the invaders get because that kind of mixes things up and that kind of adds a little spice and sugar to it. And I got to tell you, for me, the absolute best part of the game are the laser attacks and the partisan cards, because it's sugar and spice. It's pure sugar and spice. You know, it's chance and it's just fun. And I just love it and I have fun with it. And I eat it up every time. Like I say, I haven't played this in years and I picked it up again and I just remember why I have so much fun with this game. Great theme. And while it doesn't have like the best mechanics, it's got fun and workable mechanics that I enjoy. It's a fun game. It's not in print anymore, so I can't say go out and buy it. But if you can find a copy, if it's not too high priced, I'd say get it, because it's if you like these kinds of dudes on a map, war games, light war games, you'll get a kick out of this one. It's fun. I don't know how else to say it. It's a fun game. So recommendation for the discriminating gamer is, like I say, if you can find it, it's not too expensive, I'd say buy it. I think you will have a lot of fun with this, whether or not you played it as a kid or you're new to this game. I think you'll enjoy it. Thank you once again for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, we ask you to please leave a comment for us on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on our Facebook page, or on thediscriminatinggamer.com. We'd ask you to please like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter. If you like this video, I'd ask you to please give us a thumb on Board Game Geek, and I'd ask you to check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about military history and fun things like that. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say, you know, the other day I spotted an albino Dalmatian. It was the least I could do for him.
Please somebody help me on my feet again, and I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time
Thank you for ruining my daddy's life.